I've met a lot of coaches who teach Hormozy style of business, but they don't have that feminine energy as well kind of thing.
Guys, she doesn't even do Instagram. This is all LinkedIn.
And just was like, I cannot continue like this. I'm exhausted. My business isn't where I want it to be because I only focus on audience growth rather than like, how do I drive sales? People were like, your energy really sold me on this.
So I want to give a little bit of backstory here because Katie signed up for CCA, was like one of the first people that enrolled. Were you on my live masterclass when I launched it in 2023?
I was, yes.
That's amazing. So I remember like us talking in the DMs post masterclass. Like I think you maybe were one of the first like 10 people on that launch or just the inception of CCA. But the reason why we're really here today is to talk about like your last 90 days of success, because you've been in the program a while, but then in the last 90 days, you joined Inner Circle, my kind of like back end ascension program for alumni. And I feel like we really brought everything from CCA and we just like put it on blast, exploded it. You had your best month ever in September. You doubled your income. And I think I have a feeling this podcast is mostly going to be about the identity shift that you went through to start taking your business seriously. I think when you joined, were you still working a corporate job?
I signed up for CCA like the week that I decided I'm going to start a business. And I didn't even dive in right away because I had so much like fear around actually getting into it. And I wasn't planning on starting a business that day. So it was the very first step that I did in like my entire journey.
Wow, that is so amazing. And I love that it's been so long because we're October 2024. So like almost a year and a half from when you joined to like us doing this podcast. And I really want to extend that time horizon for everybody and show people what like long-term commitment to your business, to a coach, to a community can really look like. So Katie, why don't we kick it off with who you are, what you do, and how you help people?
Awesome. I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me. My name is Katie Culver. I'm a career coach and mindset mentor for ambitious generalists. I typically work with people who are in tech or consulting who are feeling kind of stuck in their career, and I help them unlock clarity and confidence so they can transition into more energizing careers, because I think work should fuel your life, which is why we're all building businesses that give us the life that we want to have. So that's a little bit kind of high level of the work that I do.
I love it. And I was saying to Katie, guys, before we started filming, how, guys, she doesn't even do Instagram. Like this is all LinkedIn. And this is what I think is so cool. So can you tell everybody like why you chose LinkedIn as a platform and how you got started there?
Yeah. So when I first joined CCA, like I don't think the main selling point was Instagram content. I was just like following Julia, following you for a while. And I was like, oh, she seems like she knows what she's talking about. And honestly, I never actually finished CCA coursework because I was like, oh, it's really focused on Instagram. And I, for my full-time job, was ghostwriting for my CEO of the startup I worked for. Just like, hey, we need to start writing on LinkedIn. Katie, you can learn it. So as my actual job, I was getting paid to learn the LinkedIn platform. I've always been a good writer. I had 3 years ago from now, I used to write on Twitter when I was actually navigating my own job search transition. And writing's always been like just natural for me. So I learned the LinkedIn platform by ghostwriting for my CEO, writing 8 posts a week. And then very quickly it was like, oh my God, I can do this for myself. And for my niche, it makes a lot of sense to be on LinkedIn. And that's been a very good decision for me. I want to do Instagram, but like I've actually learned to focus in one thing at a time and really build the sales system based on that one channel first.
I love that. So let's kind of like backtrack a bit. It's February 2023. You have this experience with writing on LinkedIn, writing on Twitter, and you're like, I want to build a business. Where was your head at? Like, what was your desire for wanting to build a business? And like, yeah, what were you hoping to learn back in February 2023?
Yeah, so it goes way before February 2023. About exactly 4 years ago in 2020, kind of hit a wall. I had been that type of person who just, what I call, followed the rules of success. I was like, let me get this good job. I'm going to get promoted. I'm going to be happy. And I felt so lost in my career. And I really took this big step back and was like, what would I do if it was really just up to me? And I wasn't afraid of what anyone else would think or if I could really do it. And I knew at that time that I wanted to have a personal brand-based service business, which sounds very specific. I was in consulting. I had no idea how to go about starting a business. I didn't know what topic it would be. And that's what led me to make this big career transition to working in early stage tech startups, because I wanted to learn what it was like to start a company, build it from the ground up. And in that experience, which was really difficult for me, that became the problem that I now help my customers solve. So it was like, I knew eventually I'm going to start this business. And after a few years working at that company and a ton of different jobs, I was like, it's now. Like the time is now. I'm either need to move on to my next role somewhere else or finally start this business I've been thinking about for years. Because when I started writing on Twitter during that period, I was writing about my career transition and building a ton of connections. People started reaching out to me to say, hey, how did you get into tech? Like, what was it like pivoting? And I looked at old journals recently when I was moving, and it literally said career clarity coach, ? Like career coach, like way back in 2021. So it was kind of a long time coming, and I had been following you on Instagram for a while and was like, you know what? I know that I'm not going to do this unless I have some sort of structure to follow. And I remember I did the initial mindset work, and very quickly on LinkedIn, I got my first client. That was someone I used to work with. And I was like, hey, sales script, like, let me figure out what this is. And so I definitely think I would have been further along had I gone in order, but it's been such an evolution and a journey. And I feel all of it is just more of a calling at this point than like, I want to start a business. What business can I start? It was more of like, oh, this is the thing that I'm supposed to be doing.
I love that. And what does career coaching mean to you? Like if someone came to you and was like, I need a career coach, what do you think you can help them do in your own words?
Yeah. So I specifically help people with transitions. I've always been interested in that messy middle period between where you want to be and where you are today, which is also why I'm obsessed with goal setting and personal development. And in a transition, it's almost like you have this identity shift. Like we talked about identity shift in business, but you're kind of like, I have this past identity that's in this career that I've had and I want to be somewhere else. How do I make that shift? How do I use identity as a tool to change in that journey? But also there's kind of like this energetics component of like, who do I need to be? How do I need to get out of my comfort zone, put myself out there? But right now the job market is also really challenging. And I've found this kind of niche around the language of becoming a standout candidate. The process that I use to pivot careers is actually the process that I teach clients to use now, even if you're not pivoting careers, because it's so hard to stand out from all the noise. And it involves taking really courageous action, figuring out your story, getting that in front of the right people. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of like being an early stage entrepreneur, like getting niche about what you're targeting, getting clear on your messaging, like pitching yourself to people and growing as a person in the process. So I really help people figure out truly what their own purpose is, what they want to be doing. And I help them, rather than saying, is this possible for me? Shift to, how do we make it happen? Let's get outside of our comfort zone. Let's tap into the personal power and put yourself out there. Go and pitch yourself, get in front of people and in rooms that you otherwise wouldn't be in. And so that's really what I do in the job search.
That is so inspiring because I remember the moment that I quit my job and I was just like laying on my bed hysterically crying, like, because I just felt so lost. And like when you said that word, the messy middle, that resonates so much. Like I could relate to that when I quit my job and I was going through that transition. But even in business, like I have so many messy middles. I feel like I have that all the time. So can you tell us more about your messy middle between like 2023 and 2024? Because there was really like this year gap that I feel like I've seen you go through as your coach. So talk to us about that.
The other thing I've learned a lot about especially working with people through career transitions, is the concept of both clarity on what you want, but then commitment to it. Because I think there's a really big difference, because you can decide what you want, but if you're not fully committed, you end up in this waffling mode where you don't fully move forward. And I remember when I first decided, okay, I'm going to start this business, I signed up for CCA. I was like traveling a bunch, had all this stuff going, was like, okay, I haven't started yet. Let me now dive into it. And remembering and feeling like, oh my God, my life is really good other than work. I'm going to have to give up this life that I want to create a business, because there is a lot of sacrifice involved. And I delayed that for a while. And that also caused me to have less commitment. So all of 2023, I was still having a very overflowing personal life. Like I go to a lot of concerts, have a lot of friends in New York City. And I was also getting up it wasn't until October I started doing this, but getting up at 5 a.m., 5:30 in the morning to work for 2 hours before my job. And I was burning the candle at both ends for like that entire year pretty much. And it wasn't until the holidays last year, 2023, I was like doing, New Year's reflections and just was like, I cannot continue like this. I'm exhausted. My business isn't where I want it to be, because I only focused on audience growth rather than like, how do I drive sales? And I knew I wanted to quit my job. I had saved up like my savings goal. And it wasn't until then that I was like, all right, who do I need to be? How do I need to show up differently in order to step into this business owner version of myself and stop treating my business like a side hustle and be like, okay, I'm running a company here. For me, the biggest challenge of all of this business building has been like the self-doubt and getting through that and seeing myself differently. Other people in my life are like, of course you are successful. Of course you can do it. I'm like, no, it wasn't of course. Like it's taken a lot of me me getting outside of my comfort zone and seeing myself the way that a lot of people who believe in me see me throughout the process. But in 2023, I guess to bring it home to like the year gap, or 2024, I started really taking things seriously and like dedicating my weekends to working on it. I quit my job 3 weeks into January of this year, or I told them, I put in my notice, a 6-week notice. And
oh, wow, 6 weeks.
Yeah. So I was in a really fortunate situation. I worked for a small startup, and all along the founders knew that I was eventually going to quit. I told them in June when I rebranded my LinkedIn publicly and was like, it's not like Instagram where you can have a separate Instagram that nobody sees. LinkedIn is like your face. You get one LinkedIn. And I told them like, hey, eventually I'm going to leave, but I don't know when that will be. I'm building my brand. And they were very supportive. So I gave them a very long heads up so we could hire somebody in the fall and all of that. So yeah, that's, I guess, brings me to when I quit. I'll pause there.
Okay. So you quit. So now what is that, like February, March 2024?
Yeah. March 1st was my last day. And my goal for so long had been like to quit my job that I didn't have a clear plan. I thought back in 2023, LinkedIn algorithm was different. I know people say don't blame the algorithm, but it drastically shifted in 2024. And I felt like I used to get so many leads. I was like, oh, this is no problem. When I quit my job, I'm going to have so many clients. But I was not super clear on who I was targeting. I needed to iterate on my offer. I was just doing one-on-one career coaching to help people with the job search at this time. And March was a tough month. I was like, oh my God, what did I just do? And then I really shifted again, like the identity stuff in April. And I had like a 10K month. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. This works. People want what I have to offer. And I made some investments in myself. And then I thought, oh my God, I'm going to burn it down. I don't know that I want to do this. And I tested other messaging, tested other angles for a while of just more talking about like the purpose, the mindset. But even to me, it felt really fluffy. And I wasn't converting people. I knew I wanted to shift from one-on-one to a group program, but the outcome just felt unclear. And I did a few masterclasses, had a ton of signups, but very little conversions. And that's when I reached out to you over the summer and was like, Julia, something's up here. Like I am not getting what I need here. And that's when you brought me in an inner circle, and lots has changed since then, let's just say.
Wow. I'm learning so much about you. I feel like through this conversation, I'm like, damn, what kind of concerts are you going through? But that's besides the point. Okay. Wow. So you really embraced this messy middle and you took it seriously. It's like kind of like that saying, if you treat it like a hobby, you're going to get paid like a hobby. And it sounds like you made that shift. And I remember when you came to me, I was kind of like, whoa, like so happy, surprised to hear from you, because I remember when you first signed up, I mean, there was like 10 people in CCA. So I like knew everybody so one-on-one, so hands-on. And I remember just being like, wow, I'm so excited that you walked yourself back here, because as a coach, and now you're a coach, so like you could bring the horse to the water, but you can't make them drink, right? Yeah. So it's like you can buy the course, you can watch the video, but like it's up to the student to implement. And anytime I see a student come to me and be like, I'm ready, like let's go, that's when we're going to make the magic. So we start working together in July. What I remember vividly was you're like, I'm ready to launch my signature group offer. You're like, I want to build something that has the bones like CCA has, where you can scale it, you could deliver at scale, still get amazing results. It's not like I'm spending 16 hours a day working all the time, but I did have to do that a lot to get here. So tell me about that experience, and what was it like creating your signature high ticket offer of PPA?
Yeah, great question. So yeah, I knew for a long time that I never wanted the back-to-back group calendar of one-on-ones. And the more that I worked with people one-on-one, I noticed that it was just so dependent on that person's priorities of like if they're making progress, if they're busy with other things. And like the timelines were just really drawn out. And I was like, I want to create something not just scalable for me, but that's like really a product for the clients. And I had resources, but not like a course backing it. And so one of the first things that we did was essentially like I had done these master classes in June and July of this year to try to pitch my like initial version of the offer, which was more about like find your purpose, get over your mindset blocks, and take massive action, which is essentially what I help people do. But that messaging wasn't working. It was too vague. And I could feel that. And so the first thing I did was really restructure the offer according to like your offer framework, the Hormozy level of, offer. And throughout the course of, then we started this DM strategy to follow up with all the leads that I had gotten from my master classes. And in that process, as I was talking to people in the sales conversations, I completely shifted my messaging within like a week, because I could hear where where it wasn't clicking. And by having all those sales conversations, I was like, oh, this is what people need. And I shifted my messaging, and I didn't build the course yet. Like I kind of had it outlined in my head, and I had this, signature framework or whatever. But it wasn't until I actually sold 5 or 6 people into my program that I was like, oh shit, we start in a week. I actually pushed out the initial date 1 week, and I built the entire course. Like it was not pretty. Like I was ordering takeout every day and staying up till crazy hours. But I got it done, and I was like, oh my God, I'm so proud of myself. Then I kicked off the group, and I didn't know how it was going to work between like coaching people in Slack and then also doing group calls. And it worked out it's worked out so much better than I expected, frankly, of just how much faster people can get the results when they have this course anytime to go and watch.
That is so amazing. And let's talk about this for a second. You do the sell before you build strategy, and you sell the course before it's actually built. And for anybody listening, what that means is kind of like a clothing brand waitlist. Like, do you want this? We're going to launch it in 2 months, like a pre-sale. It's like the same thing with course business. Is something we teach our clients. So you do this pre-launch. Now you're like, okay, 5, 6 people paid me. Now I got to deliver. You deliver, you do it on time. What happens from there? Because the magic really came in knowing that you had something that worked and then going full force with it. So can you walk us through what that was like?
Yeah. So it was interesting too, because just really quick on the sell before you build, had I built the original course that I wanted, it wouldn't have sold. So I'm really glad I didn't do that, because I spent the first half of June like trying to kind of put it together. I'm like, this isn't clicking. So I'm really glad I didn't do that. And then by the time I actually built out the course, I had just had all these sales conversations with people who were like my dream clients coming into it. So I actually added things that were like, because I didn't work with hundreds of one-on-one clients first. Like I had a lot of one-off sessions, but I incorporated their questions and their context into the material. So big plus on that. It was a little stressful, but we made it happen. I was honestly, frankly, very exhausted after like giving everything that week. I moved and I was like, okay, this is a lot. What am I going to do in September? Now I've got 6 people in my program. I'm starting it off. It's going well. How am I going to continue to get the word out there? I had not even emailed my list and been like, I have a new offer. And I had really enjoyed doing masterclasses. I'm good at them. People were signing up. So I was like, okay, what do people need? Like I really tapped into my intuition and I was like, people are stuck in the job search because they're getting passed over. And actually at this exact time is when I narrowed it on the language of I'm targeting generalists. There's people who have done the same job for 6 years in a row, and those people are not making any sort of change. But a lot of people I work with, they're like, I do operations and I do some marketing, and it kind of floating around between different things that makes it harder to get a job, especially in this market. And so I realized like, okay, I have been speaking to these people, but I wasn't calling it that. So I updated my messaging on my LinkedIn like right then. And then I launched this masterclass that was all about how do you stand out, stop getting passed over in the job search. And the messaging that I put into like behind this had a lot of energy behind it. It had a lot of like strong language, and it really resonated. I was shocked. Like I had 240 people sign up for my initial masterclass. I did a second one because I messed up the replay. And then total, I think I had like 300 something people sign up, which is crazy. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is wild. And then before the masterclass, I was like, Julia, can I see your masterclass slides? Because I've done them before, but they hadn't converted as well. So in kind of following a similar framework, I was able to put in my educational materials and sell in a similar way, because I'm like, oh, the structure of my program is actually quite similar to CCA. And it worked extremely well. I ended up with like 12 new signed clients in that month. And like, that was when I really feel like, okay, I nailed my pitch. This offer is resonating. And I think had I finished the slides more than 5 minutes before the thing, like I probably could have converted even more people. But it was a good example of choosing the right topic that really resonated with people and putting so much energy behind it. People were like, your energy really sold me on this. And my clients have been thriving inside. So it's been cool to now think about how else can I shift the program and better meet people's needs while also scaling myself, because I can't do as much one-on-one as I scale.
I vividly remember when you sent me a voice note in Inner Circle and you were like, Julia, I just did the best masterclass I've ever done and I forgot to record it. And I just was like, I love this moment so much, because it just goes to show that like you were in the vortex, like your fullest embodiment, fullest energy. And in the moment you're like, I probably want to die right now. But you said like, should I do it again? And I was like, you can if you want, but energy doesn't lie. Like you can't ever try to match that again. Like the whole purpose of it was like, you broke the internet. I think we even played to this in your marketing.
Yeah.
Like we broke the internet, the Zoom didn't record. And I think that's what's so magical. And for you specifically, that's your genius. You're talking all about like, how do you stand out? Oh, you be yourself. You be the highest embodiment of yourself. It's all energy. It's all mindset.
Yeah.
So another thing I want to point out here is like, one, great work. Like this is the benefit of sometimes it's just like, just show me the way. Just show me how to make the masterclass slides and then I can plug and I can do it. And I swear, I think that's what you pay for when you invest in coaching. Like I'm actually getting on my fitness coach's podcast right after this. And I'm going to be like, I didn't want to try to figure it out by myself. I just want you to tell me exactly what to do and I will do it. And it's like, that is what I want to point out. But I also want to point out something huge that people always come to me for. And it's so funny because for some like coincidental, that's not coincidental reason, so many people that are coming on the podcast and succeeding with CCA are like not business coaches. They're like very niched coaches. Like we have you in career coaching, an Ayurvedic coach, period recovery coach, so many different niches. And I think the thing that is standing out the most is the specificity. And for you, like, okay, you and I talking like mentor to mentee. Yeah, it's mindset coaching. But we can't sell mindset coaching because everyone is. CCA is mindset coaching. But the key that I'm hearing that exploded your business, doubled your income, skyrocketed your success was being specific and creating your own signature process around something that everybody understands.
Yeah, exactly. I think being more specific on my targeting, which I struggled with for a really long time, I was like, I want to work with ambitious, high achieving people. But I was like, they're kind of pivoting. So like maybe not industry. And I really struggled with that. And I kind of finally landed on this language that has become normalized by multiple different communities and it's becoming more common. And I kind of do speak to industries across like tech and consulting. And those are the clients that I get. So being specific on who I'm targeting, but then also the fact that that is me. I, even in my masterclass, as I didn't just say, here's what I've done, especially for these people, like they are in the job search, struggling to get a new job. There's been a lot of layoffs across tech, a lot of people who are unhappy because their team's been laid off and they're stuck doing everyone else's work. And I told it really in detail. I actually went back in time and looked at different timestamps within my career pivot. And I told them how I struggled with all of the different challenges. And then I said, can you see yourself in my story? Because I had all of the problems that you've had. And people were like, yes, oh my God, yes. And then I said, your story's not over yet. Here's what I did next. And I really showed them the way that like, I've solved this for myself. I laid out my process very clearly in the masterclass. I educated people on their gaps. I think that's another important thing that I've learned on messaging is you can't just say, oh, you're like, for you, for example, it's like, oh, you're posting content, but this isn't happening. And so it's like, these people are doing a lot of great action. They're not sitting on their hands at home, but not getting to where they want to get to. And so I think that was another piece that really resonated. And I really spelled out my signature framework. And having that as like a backbone to my experience, like my clients are speaking that language. They're like, oh, I'm on this section, I'm diving into here. And having that vernacular, I think shared language has made a really big difference in terms of building my brand and building my, like, I would like to build honestly more of a movement and like figure out how to even lean more into that messaging. One of the things for this masterclass was, it was actually not an advisable title. It was Standout Candidate Club. And I purposely wanted it to feel like you're getting in this club, you're a VIP, you have this aspirational identity of, I want to be a standout candidate. What are they doing differently to get hired? And I've been leaning onto that language. And I think that makes actually a huge difference.
This is something that is called coined language, right? So it's like when we look at Mel Robbins, we think of the high five habit, right? We think and associate people with the coined language and the brand.
Yep.
And that really is the secret, because it's like, it's funny, right? Because a lot of people come to CCA or me or business coaching being like, I want to make this much money. And in the beginning, like I used to just sell income claims. Like, hey, I can help you make this much money because I can. But what is the secret behind it? Your personal brand. Like, this is why we don't help people with like faceless marketing, all this other crap that's like flooding the internet. That's very like get rich quick, because the secret is you. And I think that your story specifically is so powerful because you really took that personal transformation. You understood the hidden message in the story, and then you condensed the timeline for your clients and you turned it into a signature framework. And like, poof, that is the secret. Like, that is how you create a scalable high ticket offer.
Yeah, it really is so based on my experience. But what's been really cool is, yes, I had this experience pivoting careers and I would have done it so much faster if I was in this program. But then I went to go work, and because I was like, oh, this recruiting process is terrible as a candidate, let me go actually work for a recruiting tech company. And so the startup I ended up joining, because I was interested in how does this work from the other side of the table and the hiring perspective, I got to advise over 100 different hiring teams. I built tech specifically for recruiting. Like, I understand the other side of the process and how the decisions get made. And both that combination of like my experience and resonating with them, but also sitting on the other side of the table, is why I'm able to coach people so well on this topic, because I understand a lot of the psychology behind it. Like, I don't talk about that in my branding and marketing. I probably should more. I have no degree in psychology, but a lot of what I teach people is how to leverage that in the process and how to hack your own psychology to see yourself differently, which I learned a lot from Ben Hardy, which you're the first person who told me about Be Your Future Self Now. But also, how do you tap into the psychology of how other people are evaluating you in the process and showing up, leaning into your authenticity and owning that rather than feeling like you have to fit yourself into some box.
So powerful. So just to kind of like, let's say, put the ribbon on all of this, wrap the present up. Christmas is coming. Christmas is my favorite holiday. So I don't know. I like Thanksgiving too. So I'm just like a tie. But what would you say, right? After working together for a year and a half now, what was like your number one thing you've taken away from this extended timeline we've been able to have together? First one that comes to your mind.
Yeah, I think when I first came back to you in the summer, so to be honest with you, I never did all of CCA. So I think I would have had results sooner had I actually gone through the program originally. But I think the biggest thing that I've taken away is, if something isn't working, you've got to know your numbers and fill in that gap. And like, I was just thinking when I came to you, like, oh, my content's not good enough because I'm not getting sales from it. I knew how to get followers. I didn't know how to create content that drove, leads as well. And you were like, Katie, that you can't just rely on that. You've got to start the conversations. And so I think really now understanding the theory of constraints of like, okay, your offer isn't good. Stop trying to do other things. If you don't fix your offer, none of it matters. And that has just given me a lot of peace of mind of like, okay, I know where to direct my attention. Now I still get overwhelmed by all the things to do, and you help me like reprioritize them. Thank God for Inner Circle. But but like really understanding that there's a science in addition to the art that you're putting on has just been such a relief, because if it's not working, I know that, okay, well, what are the other things I can do? It's not just accept the fact that, okay, not as many people signed up for this thing.
That is so powerful because it all boils down to the numbers. And it's so funny because the thing that sells is like Instagram growth, content growth, personal brand marketing, because that's like the sexy thing. But the not sexy thing is like, what's your conversion rate on a webinar? What is your sales closing rate? And then it's like, wait, I was supposed to be measuring that. And it's like, okay, get in the door. You got to sign up for this.
Yeah.
Like, that's where the power lies.
Yeah, I think I've grown a lot in terms of like tracking, like knowing my sales numbers, having tracking for all my calls, even just seeing like, okay, what's my current pipeline look like? How do I need to drive more conversations? It's like, it's all solvable problems. And it's very easy as a business owner to focus on the wrong thing because, oh, content, it's familiar. I can just write a different type of post and see what happens. It's like, no. Okay, let's go to the actual problem and solve that. And I think you've done a really nice job. Honestly, the reason why I work with you is this combination of like Hormozy style of like, this is business, but also the intuitive, how are you showing up and taking care of yourself and like leading yourself as a business owner? Because I've met a lot of coaches who teach Hormozy style of business, but they don't have that like intuitive, how are you, like feminine energy as well kind of thing.
Are you eating? Are you breathing?
Yeah. It's like, it's that combination. And I really need both. I really need both.
Oh, thank you so much, Katie. I appreciate you. I appreciate this conversation. It has been so fabulous. And it's been so great to just see your evolution, even like learn more about your story. Like, I always ask for dates because that's like how my brain works. Like, as you know, I'm like very numbers oriented. So I'm like, tell me the month, tell me the year, like give me the timeline. So my last question for you would be, if someone's listening to this right now and maybe they're on the fence of joining CCA or a program with us, what would you tell them?
I have done a lot of business coaching programs because I've spent a lot of time outsourcing my power to say, oh, this next thing is going to help me, but not doing the work. And I've seen a lot of insides of programs. I've overpaid for things for certain. I think CCA is an incredible amount of value. And the only way to fail is if you stop showing up. And so I think it's just such a great place, whether you are just starting a business or you're like, something's not working, I got to figure out a more systematic approach to this. Like, it's just such a holistic program between the content, how much access we get to you on calls, and all of the other people in the community who are like, let's rise to the occasion and not cry about things that are not working. Like, let's support each other and rise.
Thank you, Katie. I love that. It's so funny because like I got a DM like right before this, and someone that is like has been considering CCA for like over a year, because yes, we have those people too, just came into the DMs with like this total victim mindset and is like, your free stuff is not working for me. And I literally texted my team, or like I'm going to go text them because I jumped on this podcast, but I'm going to go text them and be like, this person is not joining CCA. Because if you're coming to me with a victim mindset, like flying into my DMs, unwarranted, this is never going to work for you. Like if you're looking for a way out before you start, you found it because you're not signing up. So I love what you said about that almost like personal accountability and the pathway forward of CCA, PPA, all the programs we help people build is really all around personal accountability, implementation, and like taking responsibility for your actions. And you are the perfect example of that. And just your self-awareness of being like, well, my numbers were reflecting that when I was going out and living life, which that season warranted that. But you saw the direct correlation between I'm going to treat this like a business, I'm building a company, and how that's reflecting your results. And thank you for sharing this story with us today.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's so true. Like, it just all comes back to how are you taking radical responsibility. And something that I now teach my clients in the very beginning of the program is, how do you lean into that identity shift? If your results make sense, let's get neutral and curious about what needs to be shifted.
Love it. Thank you so much, Katie. Last but not least, where can people find you if they want to learn more about your coaching?
Yeah, so of course, mostly on LinkedIn. My full name on LinkedIn is Catherine Culver, so that'll be linked in the show notes. I do have an Instagram, but not much action on there just yet, hopefully soon. And then I also write a newsletter, which is also posted as a blog on my website, so that'll be linked too.
Cool. Thank you so much, Katie.
Thank you.